Anna comes from the Institute of Contemporary History in Ljubljana and is one of the main organizers of this event. She has recently been awarded a Marie Skłodowska-Curie postdoctoral fellowship, so congratulations. And it will start next year, if I know correctly.
Yes.
Yeah. So her project is titled A Land of Joiners, A Gender History of Volunteer Fire Departments in a Three-Border Region of East Central Europe in Times of Political Transformation, 1980-1989. And she has also recently co-edited a volume titled Making Sense of Dictatorships, of the Dictatorship, Domination and Everyday Life in East Central Europe after 1945. And today she will talk about the Yugoslav Socio-Political organizations. So, Anna, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Tjasa, for your introduction. Hello, everyone. So, yes, my presentation today is about socio-political organizations which were, according to the 1974 Yugoslav Constitution, integral part of the Yugoslav system. So there were 5 socio-political organizations: the League of Communists, the Socialist Alliance of the Working People, the Socialist Youth Alliance, the Trade Unions, and the League of Associations of Veterans of the National Liberation War. These organizations had a very similar structure on the federal, republican, and on the municipal level. So first, a disclaimer. In my research so far, I haven't investigated this organization as such, as phenomena of the Yugoslav system of self-management. However, in my research about everyday and political life in local communities, or in the research about voluntary associations, I have always come across these organizations. Now, in short, socio-political organizations were specific forms of citizens' interest organizations. Each of these 5 organizations had its own function. The Constitution specifically defined the role of the League of Communists as the leading ideological and political force of socialist self-management. It also specified the role of trade unions in strengthening the position of workers, while the role of the Socialist Alliance of the Working People was defined as the foundation of socio-political activities of citizens. Socialist Alliance combined very different associations, organizations, and so on. I will talk more about Socialist Alliance in the second part of my presentation. Then the other 2 socio-political associations were the Alliance of Socialist Youth, which represented for the League of Communists its offspring, and the Association of Veterans represented the interest of partisan veterans and the preservation of partisan traditions. First, I would like to say a few words about the origins of the socio-political organizations. In the Yugoslav system of self-management, the socio-political organizations were not political parties. They were intended to go beyond the classic party mediation between society and the state. The origins could be traced with the development of the socialist self-management in Yugoslavia. After the Yugoslav Soviet split in 1948, the Yugoslav communist leadership was in search for an adequate ideology, inspired in part by the Paris Commune and Marx's idea of the withering away of the state and the free association of producers. The main idea was to decentralize the state, to hand the administration of the enterprises to the workers, and to introduce social property. One of the main creators of the new policy was Edvard Cadill, who was one of the most influential members of the Communist Party of Slovenia, or the League of Communists of Yugoslavia, as the party renamed itself in 1952. Cadill in his works discussed the problems of socialism, democracy, socialist and direct democracy, and how to implement it in practice. Some scholars have pointed out the link between Cadill's political discussions and policies regarding self-management with those of pre-war Christian socialists such as Janez Evangelist Krek and Andrei Gosar. In short, in the late 19th and early 20th century, Janez Evangelist Krek, a priest and politician within the conservative Slovene People's Party and representative in the Austrian parliament, was acquainted with the Austrian Christian social movement of Karl Lueger. Krek was critical against liberal economic system as being anti-social and anti-democratic. He organized several peasant and workers' cooperatives and founded the Yugoslav Professional Association, which would then become the biggest trade union in the Slovene lands until the beginning of the Second World War. In his monumental book entitled Socialism, published in 1901, Krek showed the diversity of socialist thought as it developed in the historical process all over the world. Another influential Christian socialist was Andrei Gosar, who in the 1920s served as a Minister of Welfare. In his book For a New Social Order, which he published in the mid-1930s, he defended the market economy with welfare regulations and advocated for what is today known as a universal basic income. Gosar criticized the democratic parliamentarism and spoke in favor of self-management, managing society. While in the 1930s, Edvard Cadill criticized Gosar, Slovene sociologist Srečo Dragoš, for example, argues that Gosar's work had a great influence on Cadill's thinking about self-management. Also, the period of the Second World War was critical. The Socialist Alliance of the Working People, for example, was founded during the war as the Liberation Front, as it was called in Slovenia, and in other parts of Yugoslavia as the People's Front. It was then renamed in 1953. In her study about the Socialist Alliance, published in 1984, historian Katarina Spehnjak argues that after the war, the People's Front transformed from a specifically democratic and dynamic political organization into a transmission of governmental bodies. Nevertheless, she defined the Socialist Alliance as a specific political organization different from classical political organization, with the element that make it a political organization, but also with those characteristics for autonomous association. In order to encourage mass politicization of the population, Yugoslav Socialist self-management adopted the so-called Delegate System, according to which the Republican assemblies were divided into three parts, consisting of the Chamber of Associated Labor, the Chamber of Municipality, and the Socio-Political Chamber. In the late 1970s, more than 15% of Slovenia's inhabitants performed at least one function within this system. In the Assembly of the Socialist Republic of Slovenia, the biggest chamber was the Chamber of Associated Labor with 150 delegates, of which delegates were delegated by municipalities' various branches like economy, education, culture, research, social agriculture activities, and so on. In the Chamber of Municipality was one delegate from each municipality. So in Slovenia, by the late 1970s, there were 62 municipalities. The Socio-Political Chamber had equal numbers of delegates, so 10 delegates for each organization, who were directly elected in the socio-political assemblies of municipal assemblies. Sorry for the language. We were just talking during the break that Yugoslav self-management language is very hard to translate in English. Within the system of Yugoslav socialist self-management, municipalities played an important role. In the late 1940s, not stopping at introducing the new system only in the enterprises, Yugoslavia also undertook reforms in its territorial administration. The aim was to connect the activities of working organizations with their local environment. In 1955, Yugoslavia introduced the so-called communal system, according to which the process of decentralization, the financial independence of municipalities and their legal competencies increased. Instead of workers' self-management, the 1963 constitution introduced the so-called societal self-management, družbeno samoupravljanje. A municipality became a constitutional unit of local self-governance. The 1974 constitution contained further provisions about the realization of self-management, defining it as socialist self-management. Local communities within one municipality became obligatory units necessary to function as a self-managing community of citizens in town districts, villages, or groups of villages. The idea of the local community of citizens, the idea of the local communities was to become an essential element of direct democracy, where citizens could solve their everyday needs and provide communal and social activities. The territorial frames of the municipality were intended to allow for the direct participation of citizens in decision-making about joint issues important for the community. In 1974, the Socialist Republic of Slovenia, with around 1,800,000 citizens, had 60 municipalities and more than around 1,050 local communities. 72% of them had no more than 2,000 citizens, and the smallest local community had only 60, and the biggest 15,000 residents. Here we can see the structures of municipality. Here, do I have the thing? So in the three parts, here are the socio-political organizations, and here are the five of them. Socialist Alliance, the Communist Unions, the Youth Organization, and the Veteran Organization. So also, as the Republican Assembly, also the municipal assemblies had three chambers. Delegates to the chambers of the municipal assembly were elected directly in elections determined by the municipality. So my own research about local communities in a particular municipality, Velenje municipality, showed that among the most active and omnipresent socio-political organizations were the Socialist Alliance of the Working People and the League of Associations of Veterans of the National Liberation War. In the local community, Socialist Alliance candidates were elected directly by the residents of the local community. In the local environment, the Socialist Alliance members closely cooperated with the representatives of the local communities. For example, before every elections, this is an article from a local newspaper, which was also a newspaper of the Socialist Alliance, of the Municipal Socialist Alliance. They would introduce their program, and then the mayor, or as it was called, the president of the Municipal Assembly, would call or would say where exactly the meetings where the candidates would be selected would take place. So for each local communities, where exactly at what day and what hour. And And for example, here on the slide is an example of from the local community Cadill pri Velenju. Is a rural local community in Velenje municipality, where in 1968 a campaign called "Village to the Town" was launched. This was a campaign where the town residents would help rural parts of the municipality. A member of the Municipal Socialist Alliance discussed their practice, and I quote, "So we approached people, we talked about their concrete problems. This is why the campaign met with such a response, and the citizens showed such a great willingness to raise money and to volunteer." End of the quote. During the Town to the Village initiative in Cadill, the president of the Cadill local community and the president of the local Socialist Alliance, in their interview for the local newspaper, underlined that the locals wanted to modernize the road and the school. In order to do this, the local community and the local Socialist Alliance organized the municipal construction company and asked the town residents to help with their voluntary work. The town residents described their help as an act of solidarity. I quote, "The number of volunteers who come to the volunteer work action every afternoon is really a sign of great solidarity and awareness of the Velenjans that they want to help people in their neighborhood." End of the quote. At the end of the year, in reviewing the annual work, the members of the Municipal Socialist Alliance were determined. I quote again, "All members of the Socialist Alliance are obliged to emphasize the solidarity of citizens in solving their problems." So here on the slide, this is the presidents of the Municipal Socialist Alliance and the president of the local communities. They discuss why the people, why the residents of Velenje should vote yes on the local referenda, where the decision should be made if they would impose the self-imposed contributions, samoprispevki. They mobilize people to do so, to emphasize that this is an act of solidarity. It was very, I can find in the sources that this was a very important element. In my recently published article, I argue that the lack of inner cohesion and a sense of solidarity within local communities were among the reasons why at the end of the 1980s, the ideological infrastructure of communism started to crumble. In the mid-1980s, the aforementioned historian Katarina Speknjak called for a critical evaluation of the Socialist Alliance in order to make its program and its structure meet the demands of developing autonomous relations in the society. Similar activities to reform the Socialist Alliance can be found, for example, in the anthology about socialist civil society, edited by Tomaž Masnak, published in Slovenia in 1985. Among the discussion of the intellectuals from the West and East, and especially Polish dissidents, we also find initiatives to reform the Socialist Alliance and create an autonomous civil society. And then this leads me to the concluding remarks about the socio-political organizations. During the post-socialist transition in Slovenia, 3 out of 5 socio-political organizations transformed into political parties. These were the League of Communists into the Party of Democratic Renewal, the Socialist Youth Alliance into the Liberal Party, and the Socialist Alliance of the Working People into the Socialist Party of Slovenia. 2 former socio-political organizations, the League of Associations of Veterans of the National Liberation War and the trade unions, while reform became and have remained civil society organizations, non-profit or voluntary associations. Yugoslav Socio-Political organization offer a reflection about the conventional separation of the political and the social. Social scientists have already pointed out that the separating the political and the social was never fixed, but has always been rather flexible and porous. In this sense, socio-political organizations represent a good example for rethinking the divisions between the political and the social within the framework of state socialism and beyond. Thank you.